Oops, sorry. And I want to share the screen. Okay. So the meeting today is about quiz 1. Today's agenda. A few announcements, then I'm going to go over quiz 1. I've got a bunch of general hints and tips for how to write quizzes. Just a second while I let a bunch of people in from the lobby. Anybody there? It says there's people waiting. I don't see them. Okay. All right. I should post an announcement of this on OnQ. There have been some discussion forums created. They've actually been there a while. I keep on forgetting to tell people that they're there. So there's a forum for textbook and notebook questions, and there's a forum for assignment 1 questions. Whenever I try to post questions that students email me to the forum. So there's a few questions with clarifications there. I should really email the class though and let you guys know that the forum is there. I think going forward for the next 3 assignments, there'll be, I'm going to try to use the forums more to answer questions because I get quite a few emails about clarifying the assignment questions. Okay, and now I need to know, so raise your hand if you actually want an extension for assignment 1. Someone has asked for one, but I've only gotten 1 request. So if there's not many, then I don't plan on extending. I don't think that's a lot of people wanting an extension. Really? Okay, I didn't think the assignment was that long. But if you want the extension, I'm happy to give you the weekend to do it. Hopefully that's sufficient. Yes, I hope. 10, 9, 8. Okay, everybody's putting their hands down. All right, so I'll extend the assignment to over the weekend, and then I'll post an announcement on OnQ. All right. I guess anybody have any questions about anything else in the course? You can either type in chat or stick your hand up or something.
Hi, yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay, hey.
Questions about the assignment.
Hold on,
one
get a second. I gotta turn my volume down.
Oh,
I just have to find my remote control now. Where'd my remote control go to? Sorry. Where'd it go? Okay. All right, go ahead.
So for question 3, there's part A and B. Did you want us to write 2 different programs in 2 different files, or keep them in one file?
2 different files because everything goes through the command line. Right?
Okay, perfect. That's kind of what I thought. And then for that second part, obviously, like part A is pretty much one whole bit of part B. I'm not sure, I think you've answered this question before, but it's okay to do things that we've not necessarily been taught, right? So for example, for part B, I just have 2 different functions that I've written, and I call each function to do each thing, but the function in part 2 is basically the function from part A.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, okay. And then my other question was for the cipher one there, in your example, it says that to pass an argument as a single argument enclosed in quotes. You used single quotes, but mine doesn't work unless I use double quotes.
Are you a Mac user or a Windows user?
Windows.
Windows users.
So right there, I do see that now, how you've separated that out. Fair enough. Okay, never mind.
Okay. That's all right. I think you might have looked at an older version of the assignment. I changed this a while ago now, but
gotcha. Okay, yeah. I've been done it for a while, so fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Anybody else? Where'd teams go? Like I said, I'm not used to using a Mac, so things behave a little differently. Okay. Don't run idle. All right. February 8th, isn't it? Yeah, it's going to be due on Monday. Let me just catch up on chat here. I have 2 questions due Monday. Why did he say he would give us the weekend? Because I'm going to give you over the weekend to do it. So that's going to be, how do I get the date? there an easy way to get the date? Anyway, yeah, I'll give you over the weekend. Oh wait, is it ready due on Monday? Someone said it was due this week. Monday was the original date. Oh, well, if Monday is the original date, all right, I'll give you. I guess I'll give you a couple extra days then. Are we required to use functions? No, this assignment is not expecting you to use functions. So you can do everything inside like one little file. Should I just be running in the terminal then? What do you mean running in the terminal then? When you,
I think May means May's trying to like run the programs actually in idle, like the shell.
Oh yeah, don't run.
Yeah,
don't
do that.
Shell. Yeah, you can't run it from the shell, May. You should run it from either if you're in Windows, you should run it from a command prompt. If you're on Mac, you should run it from terminal. How do I get the conversation back? Here we go. Okay, anybody else? We allowed to use functions. I'm not exactly sure what question 4 is asking us. Sure. Let's take a look. Question 4. Oh, yeah. Okay. Question 4 is, so I didn't tell you what question 4 actually is. Question 4 is basically, it's a numerical technique called Monte Carlo integration. So what this particular program is actually trying to do is it's trying to find the area of a circle. So the way this works is, so the way Monte Carlo integration works is you've got some function that you want to integrate, and so you just generate a bunch of random numbers, right? So you generate a bunch of random points, right? So you generate a bunch of random points, x, y, right? So, and the question says you should generate the points so that they are inside the square, right? Where the upper left corner is -1, 1, and the bottom right corner is 1, -1. Right, so you've got a square, you're just going to generate some random coordinates inside the square, right? And you do that using, here, you're going to use random uniform for that, right? So you can generate x as random uniform -1, 1, and y as random uniform -1, 1, right? And that'll give you some random point, x, y, that's inside that square. Okay, and so you're going to do that that many times, right? So when you run your program, you're going to tell it how many points to generate. Okay, so your first point, for example, might be, I don't know, 0.5, 0.25 or something like that, right? So that'll be your x and your y. You then check, do the coordinates of that point satisfy that inequality, right? So in other words, are they inside the unit circle? If they are, you count 1, right? You keep count of the number of points that you generate that are inside the unit circle, right? So you do this 10 times in this example, right? If someone types 50, you would do it 50 times. If someone types 75, you do it 75 times, right? And then after you've done that, you just compute 4c divided by n, right? C is the count, so how many points were inside the unit circle. N is that number there, right? And you spit out that value, right? So when you run the program with 10, you might get a value like 2.8. You might get something else. Well, you'll probably get something else, right? As this number gets bigger and bigger and bigger, this number should get closer and closer and closer to pi, right? That's this part down here, right? And so this is a technique that's used to normally, you don't use it to integrate like the unit circle because you know what the answer is for that. But it's used to integrate functions, more complicated functions that can't be solved analytically. Does that answer your question? Where'd it go? Whoa, there's a lot of chat. Okay, Syed, does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Question 4.
I just had one question. Sorry to interrupt in between. Can I ask?
Yeah, I guess so.
I went through the topic of week 3. I was kind of lagging behind, so I just finished week 3, and there was this one section as mutability.
There was a section
in the
about
textbook.
Oh, in the textbook. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's it about?
Mutability. So basically, when an object is mutable, if it changes its value.
Okay, so yeah, so
If
yeah,
I screen
so
share, will it be fine?
no, that's okay. And so an object is mutable, yeah, if you can. So normally what you say is an object is mutable if you can change its state, and its state is something that you can see about the object, right? So a list is mutable because you can change its size and you can change the elements that are in the list.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
I just wanted to know one thing. As in the given example here, where x is equals to 0.30, 0.60, and 0.10. So we are here reassigning an array element, right? So we are reassigning the value of A1 to 0.99.
Sure.
So I just wanted to know that the 0.60 still resides in the memory, right?
The points. You mean the value that's stored in the list?
Yeah, the old value of A1. That like
Oh,
the
the
old
old
value of
value.
A1. Yeah.
It's
So
still
it
in
still
memory
resides
somewhere.
in the memory. Yeah.
That's a
So
complicated.
I
So
just
that's a
wanted to know
complicated question.
how to remove that value, because that's obviously occupying our space, right? And we don't want that value because we just initialized it by
Yeah.
using 0.60, but now we have changed it to 0.99. So it doesn't make any sense to keep this inside our memory space.
Okay. So the answer is in Python you cannot manually remove the. You can't easily manually remove the. Well, I don't think you can remove it at all. Actually, you can't. The programmer doesn't control when objects are removed from memory.
Okay.
So Python and Java both have something called a garbage collector, and it's the garbage collector that's responsible for dealing with unused objects.
Oh,
It's actually a whole thing because you have to decide, you have to figure out, the garbage collector has to figure out whether or not that object still needs to be used somewhere else. But you don't manually remove it yourself.
okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Now Ethan said for question 5. Ethan, is your question answered already, or are we still talking about it? Because you guys have gotten quite far ahead of me. Ethan, you there? Oh, Ethan, probably at the bottom. Oh, you think so? Okay. Question 5, generating. We need to make one long string of characters or a series of words. Oh, yeah, Ethan. So you want to make a series of words of length n. Sorry, not of length n. Not of length n. Of that length. Am I calling it n? No, I'm not calling it n. Yeah. So you want to make it of the same length as the string that was input. Right. So in this case, when you run this when you run your program, right, this one wants to generate that many strings of length 3.
Sorry, Professor, you're not sharing your screen anymore, just so you know.
Oh, thank you. Let's try that again. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you want to generate that many strings of length 3 because ROM has length 3. Individual words, yeah. So just random strings of length 3. In regards to comments in code, how often should I be adding comments, especially for lines of code which are not in place? Yes. So Will, so your code should be what's called self-commenting or self-documenting. So for everything that you're doing in this assignment, I don't think there's any need to add comments because a knowledgeable reader can read your program and understand what you're doing, right? Comments aren't, you don't need to include comments like add 1 to I or stuff like that, right? You don't need to explain what you're doing because anybody that's going to be marking your code probably knows what's going on. It's only when you have something that's, when you're doing something that you think might be a bit unusual, that you should comment. But if you look at professional code, inside of most programs, there's very little code with inside. There's very little code that's not describing what the function or method or class or object does, right? So a lot of the modern programming languages have comments inside which are extracted, and they become the documentation for the code. Right, so that's different than putting comments into your code that explains what you're doing. So you generally don't need to do that unless you're doing something unusual. Okay.
Okay, so I think my explanation, I think I responded to his comment in the chat. So I was wrong in saying what I did. So in the textbook, they've kind of been inserting comments for the explanation of the logic and defining variables. So we wouldn't need to include that.
No, you don't need to define that. The textbook's probably doing it because it's geared at people who haven't programmed a lot, right? So they're explaining why they're making these variables. You don't need to do that unless you're making weird variables, like you're creating variables for some unusual reason. Unusual. Let me try that again. You're creating variables for some unusual reason. Okay, for question 4, when I try to print my number to the terminal, it doesn't show the decimal, and when I run it in idle, when you try to print my number to the terminal, it should.
I solved his problem. He wasn't defining it as a float. The sysarc.
Okay, good. I heard the assignment. Yeah, it's going to be extended. I'll tell you when. How does the number calculated? Question 4 need to be rounded. Question 4 probably. Oh, you don't round at all. Just output the the floating point number. You don't have to round. Are we allowed to use global variables? You only use one in question 4. I mean, if you know the only reason you would need a global variable is if you're writing functions. So if you're writing functions, then you're already ahead of what we're doing. So yes, you may use a global variable. I think my hand is raised. Is my hand raised? Oh, hey, look at that. That's hilarious. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Great. Let's try doing this. Let's try doing the quiz. Sorry, does someone have a question or no? Okay. Quiz, general tips. Okay, so before you start the quiz, now your quiz is open book, right? So you should make sure that all the resources you need or might want access to are available to you before you start the quiz, right? Because as soon as you press the start button, right, as soon as you look at the quiz, your timer starts and there's no way to reset it, right? So you are allowed to have idle available to you, right? You can use idle or whatever Python IDE you're using, right? So make sure it's open and running in a convenient location, right? Yeah, what do I mean by convenient location? So I'm on a Mac here, right? So if I open the terminal, so this is just like I've opened the terminal to begin with. You should be organizing your files on your computer in some nice way. Someone's unmuted. Who's unmuted? Okay, thank you. So you can organize it however you want, but I've got my stuff in documents CISC121, right? And so, and I'm in quizzes, quiz 1. So it's up to you how you want to organize your stuff, right? Maybe you just have a CISC121 directory or folder. Maybe you have a bunch of folders or something like that. But you should have, you should be organizing your work, right? And so this is quiz 1. I've got a quiz 1 directory. I'm just going to start idle up here. So this is Mac. In Windows, it's a little, it's harder to start idle from the command line. So you should just start it up from the start menu. And then, so my idle opens up with just the editor. If you want, you can open up the, sorry, I figured out how to do this early. Oh, here, Python shell. So if you want the shell, you can open that up too, right? But my editor now is open here. So if I save something, whoa, it's going to put it in my quiz 1 folder, right? So I'm all ready to go, which means I can run any script that I want from this terminal now, right? You should have the textbook open, right? If you want to use the textbook, right? Hopefully you don't need the textbook because it's hard to, you're going to spend a lot of time navigating through the textbook if you're always looking stuff up, right? But you can have it open if you want it, right? If you want the notebooks, make sure those are opened up, right? And this is the important one. For some reason, a lot of students who, a lot of computing students in an introductory programming course never have pen and paper available to them. But pen and paper turns out to be super useful, right? Because you can sketch stuff quickly, you can throw it away, right? And it's very useful to, it's often very useful to sketch through a problem on pen and paper, right? Which takes me to the, while writing the quiz tips, right? So when you're writing the quiz, right, there's often this pressure to go fast, right? But you shouldn't go so fast that you don't read the question carefully, right? The vast majority of mistakes are made because someone hasn't read the question carefully. And students often end up answering the wrong question. It's not that they've interpreted the question correctly, it's just that they completely missed things in the question. So it's important that you read the questions carefully, right? After you've read the question, it's often very useful to sketch or draw pictures to help you solve most problems, actually. But certain ones in particular, right? It's very useful that you actually draw something out because it often leads immediately to a solution, right? And then the other thing you should do is you should actually work backwards. So rather than trying to come up with a solution, right, you should try to figure out what's the expected answer when I run this program, right? And we'll see some examples of that shortly, right? Because if you figure out the expected answer ahead of time, when you've got your first solution at your problem, you can then run your program and see if it matches your expected answer, right? And then you know if it doesn't, then you know right away there's a problem, right? And if you work out the expected answer for several cases, often you can just work through the cases and you can increase your confidence in your answer, right? If it passes all your test cases, then you know that's better than not testing your program at all, right? Or just testing it once. Okay, so let's look at the quiz questions. So quiz question number 1. Here we go. Now you remember, there's only testing you on 2 weeks of material, right? So in the first 2 weeks, basically there's some arithmetic, there's some variables, there's if statements, and there's loops. There's no lists, right? So there's so basically you're only being tested on the very basic stuff in Python. There's strings as well, but the textbook doesn't really cover any of the string methods. So you're not going to be tested on those either, right? Question 1 asks you, it's basically the quadratic formula, right? And it only asks you for one of the 2 roots, right? So it asks you basically to compute that thing there, right? For this specific example here, right? So you look at the problem, it's 2x squared minus 4x minus 6 equals 0, right? One of the tips was you should work out what the expected answer is, right? Well, 2x squared minus 4x minus 6, that's just 2x plus 2 times x minus 3, right? You know that the roots must be then minus 1 or 3, right? So you know the answer, right? The answer is either going to be minus 1 or 3. If you're a little bit sharp, right, you'll realize that this is the larger root, right? Remember the quadratic formula is minus b plus or minus, right? That's under the square root, so it has to be positive. So this one has to be the larger root. So now you know that the answer has to be, the answer must be 3, right? And so now when you code up your solution, if you don't get 3, you know something's wrong, right? As for reading the question carefully, this is the part a lot of students miss, right? It says your solution should use variables a, b, and c, rather than just using 2, minus 4, and minus 6, right? And so when you go to write up your answer, right, I don't recommend typing directly into the box. I actually recommend doing it in idle first and then copying and pasting in, right? So, well, all right, it's not hard. A is 2, right? I even tell you what the coefficients are, right? So I don't make you work out, this has to be B is minus 4, right? B is minus 4 and C is minus 6, right? It's not a math course, so I'm not really interested in whether or not you can interpret. You can go from here to here, right? And now I want you to compute the root. So the root, right? The only tricky part here is how do I compute the square root, right? And this is something plus something divided by something, so you have to use brackets to group to do the order of operations correctly, right? Or you can do it in 2 steps, right? So if I do it in 2 steps, it's just minus b plus, right? Math square root b squared minus 4 times a times c, right? And then the root is equal to the root divided by 2 times a, right? And again, you need the brackets here, right? Because if you write divided by 2 times a, right? Python goes left to right for the division multiplication operators. So it does root divided by 2, and then it takes the whole thing and multiplies it by a, right? So the 2a needs to be in brackets, right? Or you add a third line, or you change it to root equals root divided by 2, and then you change, then you add a third line, root equals root divided by a, right? And then you save this. So, let's call it Q1, right? And when you run it, oh, sorry, hang on. Python Q1. Oh wait, I need Python 3, right? Q1. It barfs. That's good, right? It doesn't know what math is. Okay, fine, right? Go back, import math. You probably want to see the answer, so I'm going to print the root. Save, and then run again. In both the Windows and the Mac shell, you can just press the up and down arrows, and they will go back in the history. So if I press the up arrow, I get the previous command. I can just run it again, right? Now I get 3, and I know my answer is probably right. Right, and that's it. Question 2. Okay, so question 2 is, it's this date question, right? So someone gives you an int, right? It represents a date, right? So the date using month, day, right? Where the month is between 1 and 12, right? And the day is between 1 and whatever, right? It doesn't matter. So there's no validation in this question, so you don't have to worry about checking if the day or month is reasonable. Because it's coming in as an int, right? Usually ints don't have leading zeros, but you are allowed to include them if you want to. But it says here the day can have a leading 0, right? So any day between that's less than 10 will have a leading 0 in front of it, right? Because it's this part of the number. But the month might not have a leading 0, right? Because normally you don't type ints as 01 or 02 or 03. So this thing here might be 3 or 4 digits long if it's an int, right? If it's a string, it'd be 4 digits. It'd be 4 characters long. And now this one just wants you to write a program. It takes in an int on the command line and prints true if the date is between March 20 and October 20, right? Inclusive, and false otherwise, right? And so basically the question is asking you to, right? So first of all, what you should do is you should work out what some sample dates are, right? 101 is January 1st, 512 is May 12th, right? 1010 is October 10, right? And now you ask yourself, well, basically, you know, if you read the question, you say, well, I have to get the day and I have to get the month, right? So how do I get the day? Well, the day is the last 2 digits, right? How do I get the last 2 digits? Take the date, divide it by 100, and look at the remainder, right? So 101 divided by 100 is 1 with a remainder of 1, right? 512 divided by 100 is 5 with a remainder of 12, and 1010 divided by 100 is 10 with a remainder of 10, right? So computing the remainder after dividing by 100 gives you the date, the day, sorry. How do you get the month? Well, it's just the remaining digits after dividing by 100, right? So how do I get the remaining digits? Well, you just divide by 100, right? You have to use int division here though, right? So you have to use the floor division to get this, right? So let's just look at the answer rather than we type it in. Right. Hopefully you've all attempted assignment 1 or these parts of assignment 1, so you know how to do this, right? Import sys and then grab the argument from the command line, right? How do I get the month? Well, I divide by 100, right? You have to use int division here, right? So make sure you use the double slash, right? How do I compute the remainder after dividing by 100? Well, it's just a percent sign, right? And then you need some logic to figure out what month you're in and whether or not and whether or not the date is between March 20 and October 20, right? So the logic here is, let's suppose you're not in March and you're not in October, right? So you're somewhere in between, right? So if the month is less than 3, right, you know the answer is false. The month is bigger than 10, because that's October, right? You know the answer is false, right? If it's not 3, so if it's April, May, June, July, August, or September, the date can be anything, right? So you don't care what the date is. You don't care what the day is, right? If you're in one of those months, right? You are between, right? So that's the part right here, right? So if it's greater than 3 and less than 10, you don't have to look at the day, right? Because you're definitely between March 20th and October 20th, right? So all you really need to do is check, are you in March, right? And if you're in March, you have to be after the 20th or on the 20th, right? So if you're in March and you're on or after the 20th, right? And finally, you have to check for October, right? So if you're in October and before the 20th, right? So if the month is 10 and the day is less than or equal to 20, right? You know that is between is true, right? Otherwise, it's false, right? You could use an if statement here if you wanted to. I just stored the answer as a Boolean, right? So that's going to be true or false depending on the whether the statement is true or false, right? And then Booleans print as true if it's true, and it prints as false if it's false, right? So you can use an if statement here if you want to. That's not a problem, right? I didn't do that here. I should check chat.
That's right. I just wanted to recap on this question here. So the date was being inputted as just like the numeric value, and the format, was it using a month, day, year, or day, month, year?
It's month, day, day.
Month, day, day. Okay.
Yep. And then Joseph suggested the even easier answer. Why can't you just print true? The input's between 320 and 1020, and the answer is you can, right? So there's lots of ways to do this, right? And so Joseph has found the easier way, right? So Joseph's found the easiest way possible that I can think of anyway, right? So if you can come up with Joseph's answer, that's even better, right? Even better. So wait, for the quiz, do we need to format for import sys? Do you need to format for import sys? You might. I mean, it depends what the quiz question asks you for, right? This particular one asked you for it, right? In sys, oh yeah, the formatting, yeah. So don't. Well, I guess you could use pre if you want to. So you'll see in a second how. In a second, I'll show you how to deal with this. Okay. Math isn't important, just create a loop that generates. Right, okay, so pasting, so pasting Python code into the OnQ window probably doesn't work, unless, it works if I turn on HTML, and then if you put spaces in, it keeps the spaces, I think. But for any longer question, there'll be an upload button, right? So for a longer Python question where there is indenting, there'll be an upload button, so you just upload your file. Okay. Could you just do it? Yeah. Checks the inputted in. Yeah. So Evan has the same answer as Joseph. Right. That's good. Can you map the date bounds in the format the input is in and do a check to see if it's in those bounds? Should you map the date bounds in the format? I don't know what you're asking, Daniel. I don't know what you mean there. Could you map the date bounds in the format the input is in? I think it's the same thing as what Evan and Joseph has asked. I mean, would it be logical plus to just or any environment, or will you have to import sys? So I don't know, just write it and you're reverting to write it in the other. Well, I mean, Cash, it depends. If the question asks you to write a program that takes it from the command line, then you should write a program that takes it from the command line. If it doesn't, then don't. Right? Do we have to include the import statement, especially in question 1? Yeah, probably not. I mean, Yeah, so I mean, for question 1, it'd be okay if you didn't import it, if you didn't include the import, I think. Yes, that's what they asked, sorry. Yeah, okay, good. Carry on. Question 3, okay. Question 3 is asking you to take this, is asking you to analyze, basically it's asking you to analyze the condition in the if statement, right? And it wants to know which one of the following is, which condition is equivalent to the one up here. Right, so this question is basically just asking whether or not you understand how this logical expression is evaluated, right? And so you can try, there's lots of ways you can try to answer this question, right? You can try to look at each one of these and try to reason out what the answer is. But this is one of those questions where if you draw something, the answer becomes a lot more obvious, right? Is asking you if x is less than 0 or y is less than 0, right? So if you sketched out a little Cartesian coordinate plane, right, then the stuff in blue, right, is where x is less than 0, right? So everything to the left of the y-axis is x less than 0, right? The stuff in blue in the second picture is everything where y is less than 0, right? So, wait, I think I typed this in wrong. Yes, or. Sorry, that's or, right? So everything where x is less than 0 or y is less than 0, well, you just combine these two, right? And you end up with the stuff in blue, right? And so what you need to do is you need to find the expression of you need to find the choice, right, that corresponds to the stuff in blue, right? So let me look at the second one first before I come back to the first one, right? If x is greater than 0, right? So x is greater than 0 is everywhere, everything to the right, right? Everything to the right. X is greater than 0 and y is greater than 0. So that's everything up here, right? But if x is greater than 0 and y is greater than 0, so it's everything in white, right? It's everything in white, which is exactly the opposite of what you want, right? I want the stuff in blue, I'm getting the stuff in white. So how do I get the stuff that's the opposite? Well, I slap a naught in front of everything and that's the right answer, right? If you work out these two, you'll see, right? So let's work out the third one. So x is greater than 0 or y is greater than 0, right? X is greater than 0 is everything over here. Y is greater than 0 is everything up top. If I OR them together, you combine all three, right? And now I get that quadrant, that quadrant, and that quadrant, which is not what I want. So that can't be right either, right? Someone unmuted. Do you have a question? No? Okay.
Hello,
So,
Professor. I just
hey.
have one question.
Yeah.
As in the question 3, where you have where we have to find which is equivalent, right? So I just want to know, in these kind of question, can we use the mathematical logic here?
Yeah, you can if you want to. There's,
Actually,
like I said, there's lots of ways to do it.
it kind of make like it kind of gives the answer, right? So I just wanted to know.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, sure. If you can work it out mathematically, that's fine too, right? You can, the trick is to try to find some way to answer the question, right?
Yeah.
If working it out mathematically is the obvious way for you, by all means, work it out mathematically, right? If the mathematical solution doesn't come to you right away, then drawing the picture definitely helps, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's Teams? Will we be getting marked on the way we code or just getting the question right for the quiz? For the quiz, I mean, because you're under a time constraint, there's less concern over whether or not your the programming style is meets the PEP 8 style rules, right? So for the quiz, purposes of the quiz, we're mostly looking at whether or not the answer is correct. Now, if someone goes out of their way to make a horrendously styled problem, the marker will probably ding you marks, right? So, I mean, as long as you're reasonable about how you're writing the answer, it's fine, right? So don't worry too much about stuff, right? But don't go out of your way to write it badly. Question 4. Question 4 is just a tracing question, right? So you've got this while loop. It's a counting loop, right? So it's starting with I and then it's doing something with I inside the loop, right? And it just wants to know which one of the following loops is this equivalent to, right? If you move that statement after the comment, then you have a different answer. So you have to be a little bit careful about where I is updated, right? So here, all you have to do is work out what values of I can occur on that line that's highlighted in blue, right? So it starts out at 10, right? I is greater than 10, so you know the loop runs at least once, right? The first time it runs, I becomes 9, right? So you know the first time I is 9 here, right? When does the loop stop? Well, when I is 1, right? Okay, so when I is 1, this becomes 0 here, right? So you know that here it's 0. So this counts from 9 down to 0. So now you have to pick which one of these counts from 9 and goes down to 0. Right? So it's one of these two, right? Then you have to remember that range does not include the second number. Does not include that value, right? It includes the value before it, right? So it's 9 minus 1 minus 1, right? So this counts from 9 down to, but not including minus 1. Right, that's it there. And then the last one, so this one is the read the question carefully. So you're going to get a longer question that looks something, well, slightly longer question that looks something like this. Right, so you have to read the question. So basically you're playing a game where you're flipping a coin, right? You're going to play the game for some number of rounds, right? So each round that you play, right, you and your friend both bet $1. The winner gets the money that's bet, right? You both start with $10, right? And the game continues until one of you has no money or until 50 rounds have been completed, right? So after 50 rounds, you stop playing, right? And then you're asked to write a main method that simulates the game described above, right? How do you flip a coin? Well, you use random range. So often there'll be information in the question that shows you how to do something, right? And so you can use range 2 to get a number that's either randomly 0 or 1, right? So that simulates flipping a coin, right? Okay, so after you've read the question, you need to ask yourself stuff like, what information do you need to keep track of, right? Well, you read the question and you realize, well, I've got some money, my friend's got some money, I'm going to play at most 50 games, right? And so if you think about it for a minute, right, you have to keep track of how much money you have, right? How much money your friend has, right? And how many rounds have been played, right? Because you're going to stop after 50, right? After you've read the question for a bit, you realize, well, I have to do something some number of times, right? So that's going to need a loop, right? Someone's not muted. Thank you. Okay, so that requires a loop. What kind of loop, right? So how do you answer that question? Well, the question that you ask yourself is, do you know the number of times that the loop will run, right? The only trap that you might run into is the 50, right? So you might think, oh, well, I know it runs 50 times, so I'm going to use a for loop. That's not true because it might run less than 50 times, right? So you probably want a while loop, but you can formulate the answer with a for loop, right? It is possible to do with for if you break out the loop, right? But you probably want a while loop, right? And now that you've concluded that I want a while loop, you ask yourself, okay, so how do I control the while loop? Well, the amount of money you have controls the loop, right? The amount of money your friend has affects the loop. And the number of rounds that you've played also affects the loop, right? So all of these variables, or all of this information is going to go into your loop condition, right? Now we look at the answer. Okay, So you need to keep track of how much money you have. So I'm calling that the purse, right? You need to keep track of how much money your friend has. I'm calling that other purse, right? And you need to keep track of how many rounds have been played. I probably should have called it rounds, but I just called it I, right? Now you write your while loop, right? When does the loop run? As long as you have some money, right? As long as your friend has some money, right? And as long as you have not yet played 50 games, right? So as long as the number of games that have been played is less than 50, right? And now you just simulate the game, right? So now you go back to the question, right? And simulate the game. So each round the game we play, each round of the game that you play, you both bet $1, right? So your purse goes down by 1, your friend's purse goes down by 1. Right? You don't have to do it this way, but I'm just doing this literally. I'm just literally showing you. I'm just literally implementing what the question says, right? So you both bet $1, then you flip a coin. Okay. How do you flip a coin? Well, I use rand range, right? If you flipped heads, right, then you win. So your purse goes up by 2, right? Otherwise, right, so else, your friend wins, so your friend's purse goes up by 2, right? You've taken care of the bet here, right? The other way to do this is to not do that there, right? And in here, you can write my purse equals my purse plus 1, and your friend's purse goes down by 1, right? So that's the other way to do it, which is fine. After you played the game, you increase the counter, right? What you don't do is you don't put this thing up here, right? So you don't do it at the beginning of the loop, right? After you played the game, you've played 1 game, right? So now the count goes up by 1. Right? If you do it up here, if you increment the game up here, your loop will run 1 too few times. Right? And then after the loop is run, you just print out some information. Well, does the question ask you to do that? No, it doesn't ask you to do that. I just printed it out so that you can actually see the answer. So if you run this, you'll actually see, if you run it, you can run it a bunch of times. You'll see that sometimes you'll play 50 games. A lot of the time you won't play 50 games and someone will go bankrupt, right? That's the other thing you should work out, right? If you don't play 50 games, either your purse or your friend's purse has to be 0, right? Because one of you has run out of money, right? It's never the case where you both run out of money, right? And if you hit 50 games, it's not unreasonable. If you hit 50 games, then it's not unreasonable to assume that you both have some amount of money, right? And you might have, I guess one person could run out, right? So one person, you could play 50 games and on the 50th game, someone becomes bankrupt. And also the total amount of money at all times is 20, right? So when you print this, when you run your program and you print out your purse and the other purse and the total is not 20, something's gone wrong somewhere, right? So these are all the things that you, these are the sorts of things that you need to think about when you're writing up your answers and testing your programs, right? You should always test your programs even if you're 100% sure that the answer is right, okay? Because often there's a mistake, there's something missing that you haven't considered. Okay. It is the Gambler's Ruin. It's a version of the Gambler's Ruin. Problem. That's true. So do they each bet? Yeah. So Ethan. That's why you have to read the question, right? Each round that you play, you and your friend both bet $1, right? You will probably never get a question from me. Well, I don't know if that's absolutely true. You're probably not going to see very many questions from me where the question says prompt the user for some input on the command line, right? So you probably don't want to do that, right? Rand int is inclusive. Yeah, so rand. So for stuff like rand int and rand range, normally the question will tell you or give you an example of what's going on, right? It's not you shouldn't be trying to memorize what these functions do, the minutia of what these functions do. You should know that randint generates a random int, right? You should know that randrange generates, it's also a random int, right? But the minutia of exactly what it does, you can always look up, right? So normally I'll tell you this, so often I'll tell you what it does exactly, right? Because the point isn't that you memorize this sort of stuff. There's the libraries in any modern programming language are so huge that no one or very few people have actually memorized everything about what all the functions can do, right? And so, like a professional programmer often will be referring to the documentation of the Python of any libraries that you're using, right? Very few people memorize everything about a function, everything about a library. Okay, any questions about the quiz?
I have just a suggestion to everyone and a point, because a lot of the questions so far are kind of about little details. I would highly recommend that people, if they haven't already, do the creative exercises in the textbook, because I've done them all for section 1, 2, and 3, I believe. So a lot of the code, at least what I've seen in your posting with the questions here, you can just pull code, or you've already done something similar in the creative exercises, and you can kind of use that logic here.
Yeah,
the quiz.
It's true. I mean, the only way you can learn programming is to program. So you really, you really ought to be looking at the assignment, the textbook questions, and working your way through them. At the very least, you should be reading the solutions, but honestly, you should be working through the problems on your own and attempting them. How long it will be? It's an hour long. Number of questions is not yet determined, but it's going to be around 5, right? You only have an hour, and it's not unreasonable to think that someone might spend half an hour writing, testing, and debugging the larger programming question, right? Often the multiple choice, and if there's a multi-select question. So a multi-select question is when there's multiple options and you have to pick all of them that are true or false, I guess. Often those questions are quite difficult. So you shouldn't think that, oh, it's multiple choice, it's easy. Often you have to think quite carefully about the answers.
Professor Ma, I don't know if I've mentioned this in the past, but I did in my math course to the professor. I live in a remote kind of northern area, and sometimes we get like a lot of power outages. The internet goes out. We had a bit of a short outage yesterday, so I'm just wondering, in terms of there's an off chance that if I do start attempting this quiz tomorrow, I'm just concerned that if I do get into a situation where I do have a power outage or my internet is out, how will you accommodate that?
Just let me know if it happens, and work something out.
Okay, so like the situation I'm worried of.
Yeah, go ahead.
The situation I'm worried about is either having a very long outage, because sometimes we have outages that are as much as a day or two here, and then sometimes the outage might just be for like half an hour, but if I'm still running the test and then I'm blocked out of it, but then get back into it and I only have like 20 minutes left.
You won't be able to get back in. It's not, if that happens, just let me know what happens and don't try to get back into the test. Right? Let me know that something's happening. We'll work something out. It's not, I don't want people using this as a way to get a second kick at the can. But it does happen. So, in October, Bell showed up and just disconnected our internet for no reason. So at my house, it does happen. Right? Are the questions randomly generated from a bank of questions? Yes, Amanda, they are. And I hate it because basically what it means is I'm not creating one quiz. I'm creating n quizzes where there's n choices for each question. Right? So in what ends up happening is each quiz takes something like 20 or 30 hours to generate, right? And then I have to generate all the answers for all of the questions. It's infuriating teaching online, right? I mean, the one way, yeah. So yes, they are generated from a question bank. Is the length difficulty of practice questions reflective of the real quiz? I think it's reasonably fair. I don't think it's hard to say, right? Because when I when I look at a lot of these questions, they all look the same to me. But often for a new programmer, there's something about one of the questions that I haven't realized becomes a stumbling block, right? So it's difficult to say. So my answers will be of similar length for each question, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be of equal difficulty for every student. I try my best, but I'm not always successful. It's actually really difficult to gauge what students will find easy and what students will find difficult. But I'll do my best. Any other questions? Okay, I hope that helped. If I was to recommend anything, so these two things here, right? Make sure you're ready to write the quiz, right? And then when you're writing the quiz, you probably have more time than you think, right? So just be careful that you read the question, right? And you're not missing something obvious. Or you're not missing something that the question is telling you, right? I actually saw it a lot with assignment 1. People would ask, how do you do X, Y, or Z? And then I'd say, well, at the top of the assignment, there's how to do X, Y, and Z. I do try to give you as much information, like the information that you need to solve the problem, right? Yeah. All right. So because the test is open for a huge window, I normally don't answer questions about the test questions, right? In particular, there's going to be people writing at like 1 o'clock in the morning because they're in China, right? Or somewhere else in the world, right? So I can't be up for them, right? It's like I can't be up from 1 till 11:30 at night. So I can't. So to be fair to everybody, I normally don't answer questions, right? Again, if something goes wrong with your test, or your quiz, just let me know. We'll try to schedule another quiz of some kind. All right, that's all I have for today, unless someone has questions. If
My
not,
only question is about assignments, actually.
Sure, you can go ahead.
So, yeah,
sorry, if you're welcome to leave if you don't have any questions. Okay, go ahead.
So I completed the first assignment, and I was trying to upload my programs. I think it was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
As I was going through, like, uploading the programs, I then kind of went back through the assignment, and I realized that I had misinterpreted question 5, which you clarified, and then I fixed it up. But I was confused about the uploading process, because it says if you want to upload more files, you can just go ahead and do it. But then when you try to do it, it says that it'll overwrite everying. So does this mean that you have to upload everything at the same time, and you can't just do it piecemeal?
I actually don't know, because I don't submit stuff on OnQ.
Because it erased or deleted all of my, like when I tried to upload a new file, it deleted
when you click the overwrite, so it deletes your old file. So be sure whenever you press the overwrite, so it will delete all your previous files, and then you have to re-upload all of your files.
Okay, because I kept trying to like upload like an updated file for a particular file, but then it deleted everything.
Okay,
yeah, so like if you re-upload it, then you will find it inside the assignment section. If you click the assignment again, so you will find like whatever, like how many times have you uploaded it, or how many times has the system accepted it. So it generates a random number for the assignment too.
Okay, so it only maintains or like actually has access to your most recent upload. I just want to make sure that my past uploads aren't being used by TAs.
Yeah. Your most recent uploads, they are being considered in the system. Your previous data is deleted, and your most recent are accepted.
All right, thanks, Kash.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All right, super. So remember, your quiz is tomorrow. You have a huge window to open it, to write it in. I changed the end time, so you can write it from, I think, 1 in the morning to 11:30 at night. You have to get it done during the window. If you have accommodations, your accommodations will be applied individually, right? So so don't worry about that. So if you sent me your accommodation letter, I'll take care of it, right? Which I also have to do manually, which is no fun. All right. Okay, thanks everybody. See you next week.